Happy birthday,
to
artwork.
artwork. You can tell we've been singing together for years. Well, we are so excited to celebrate in this episode and this day. We're so excited to celebrate 1 year of the Artwork podcast, and we cannot believe that we have been working on this podcast for a year. And over the course of this year, you have made this podcast so rewarding for us. The fact that you've listened to our work that we just kind of dreamed up and made happen.
I know, in one afternoon, I feel like it all fell into place.
So what has happened in the last year, Poppy?
In the last year, we've had nearly 5,000 plays, over 100 people in our Facebook group, and we've talked to nearly 50 artists. And I can't believe it. I'm so excited, and I'm so happy that we've made this from this one afternoon in your living room in Berlin. We were like, yeah, we should start a podcast. It's been listened to over 5,000 times.
Yeah, that's so unbelievable. And it's just been amazing how it's evolved, because we definitely knew nothing about starting a podcast in the beginning. It was just, we didn't really have much to do during COVID. And so it was like, well, what am I going to do with this time? What are we going to do with this time? Let's collaborate. Let's make this podcast happen. And yeah, it's just been such a joy to create and be a part of.
It definitely has. It's felt like one of those things, like everything has just kind of fallen into place really easily for it, in terms of like the idea, the concept, the structure, how we work together. It's just not been difficult, it's just been natural, organic, and felt like the right thing to do at the right time.
And I definitely just want to say a huge thank you to all the artists that we featured, because they really, every single person has shared so honestly about their journey, and they've been so real with us about the struggles, the joys, the reality of being an artist. And in doing so, they've really inspired our listeners. And it's been amazing to receive messages from people from all over the world, hearing that an actor from England has inspired a theatre maker in Australia. It's just been amazing to see these connections being formed, and to see stories impacting artists from around the world. And that's what we wanted to do with this. So it's been amazing.
And they've impacted us as well. That's hugely. Totally. I feel like I'm such a better person than I was a year ago, having listened to so many artists just, like you say, share so honestly, share so vulnerably. And I've just learned so much from everyone, that on a purely selfish level, I love this podcast because it's made me better. And I can't wait to carry on with it as well. We're talking about it now, like it's been this, and it's going to be this even more.
Exactly.
And it's going to keep going. And we are going to be switching from every week to every other week from June, because lots of other things going on in our lives. And now that you can go busking and I'm going to work, so we're going to be going to every other week. But we are still so keen to throw 100% into this podcast.
Over the last few weeks, we have asked our listeners, we've asked you on our different social media platforms if you had any questions for us as we were piecing together this episode. And we did get some amazing questions. And we've also thrown some of our own questions in there to ask each other too. And we're really excited to tell you a little bit more about what this process has been like for us, what it's like working on a project like this with a really close friend. And then also we've been asked some questions about what we did before too. So it's going to be a really fun, exciting episode where we get the opportunity to share some stuff from behind the scenes with you.
Yeah, and to celebrate our first birthday.
Exactly. Happy birthday, Artwork. what's going on in your life at the moment? Give us a little update on what's happening in Poppy's world.
Oh, well, in Poppy's world, it's all a bit of a change. We're having a bit of a new chapter, a new start. Again, I feel like every year it's like that at the minute. It was last year was a new start as well. But yeah, my Etsy shop is doing very well, and I'm enjoying making all my crystal jewelry, researching all the crystals, wrapping them up, and I've realized that like I want my products to be more like a gift, and I package them like a nice little present than just like, some jewelry you buy. So that's been really fun. But also, I'm starting a new job. I've got a job, an NHS charity, and I am now an official office businesswoman. Yeah, I'm really excited.
Yes, queen.
And
the podcast helped you get that job, right?
Oh, it absolutely did. The amount of references to the podcast, working together as a team that I made in that interview to get this job was ridiculous. So very glad that we've had this that I could call on, because I think so long as I know we worked together when we were doing music, but for me, this podcast has definitely seemed a lot more collaborative because, when we were doing our music, yes, we were touring together, but we were doing our own thing on stage, and it was still we were solo people working together. Whereas now it's like the podcast is both of our baby,
Yeah,
so
that's so true.
That's my little life update. Etsy's big new job, and yeah, that's me.
Awesome.
So what about you? What's your life update? Where are you at the moment?
Ooh, well, I'm still in Berlin, and I've had a bit of a struggle the start of this year to just kind of, I think I've been going through a bit of an existential crisis as an artist, dealing with the fact that what I do has not been permitted or has not been seen as something essential in the last 12 months. And so it's really kind of it's caused me a lot of identity crisis, I would say, of just feeling like, am I contributing anything to society? But now that the sun's coming out, I'm really, really hitting the streets hard, busking with my acoustic folk duo Flora Falls, and I can't tell you how much joy that's brought me to be able to play music again for real people and to bring some life back to the streets of cold Berlin after a really long winter. And it's been so special to play in the park and have people come up and just say, thank you. You're bringing the life back. You're bringing hope back. You're just making a beautiful atmosphere. And that's really affirmed me to know, okay, no, this is really worthwhile and valuable, and people do need the arts to feel like they're living and to feel hope. So that's been fantastic. So Dom and I are working really hard to achieve some big goals for this year. We want to release an EP, and we've got a thermometer on my door of all of our financial goals we need to make to be able to pay for all the things we need. Yeah, and I'm just continuing with other freelance work, like creating curriculum for theatre and music projects that are happening in Germany, and working really hard on this podcast, which has been fantastic.
Yes, and art is essential. We have learnt that this year.
Oh, so totally. I feel like doing this podcast and hearing all these stories, we have been so encouraged to remember that everything that we have personally gone through over the last year of, self-doubt, wondering what we're doing with our lives, feeling unworthy, all these sorts of things. By having these conversations with our artists, we've also been extremely affirmed and encouraged to know that we're not alone.
It's really easy to just want to go do and produce, but like rest is really important. And in like the society, in the capitalist society that we live in, rest is really undervalued. It's almost seen as weak. And I think the most kind of like healing, the most growth I've done is when I've just like said no and said no. Saying no actually means saying yes to myself.
And it's a learned skill, right? I think you learn it as you become an adult, and sometimes it takes even longer for people. They don't learn it until they're 30 or 40, and that is that you really just have to trust your gut and trust that the journey that you are on is the right journey, and that it's not always going to be pretty, but you just have to trust that you're on the right path. But only like you'll only be on that right path if you like live in the moment, as opposed to thinking too far ahead, or we never know what's around the corner. Like I always say, like I could die tomorrow, and as grim as that is, it's just fact and it's truth. So just try and exist and be present every day and do what makes you happy.
So the first question is, how did the podcast come about?
When I first came to Europe, I had this dream that I would start a YouTube series or a blog where I featured the stories of street artists. And I just never had the capacity or the time to do it. But it's been something that's been in the back of my mind for years and years. And I remember talking to a friend of mine in Ireland a couple of years ago, and I was like, I think my winter project is going to be to start something where I feature stories of artists. And she was like, do it. But I just didn't know where to start. And then when the lockdown hit us in March last year, I lost all my work. I really had no idea what I was going to do to fill my time. And I do not do well in that kind of situation. I needed to keep busy somehow. And I talked to my cousin, and she was also struggling with lockdown, living in Thailand. And we were like, right, this week, what are we going to challenge each other to do? And I was like, okay, I think I want to start a podcast. She was like, right, okay, that's your challenge. I had a couple of other things on the list as well. And I hung up the call that I was making with my cousin Larissa, and I immediately called Poppy and was like, do you want to start a podcast?
And I was like, yes, absolutely. Let's do it. Because we knew that we worked so well together from touring, because we did that for nearly 2 years, and we did over 80 concerts, and we were with each other 24 hours a day for weeks, months on end, and we still enjoyed it. We had good times, and I was like, if we can get through that, we work well together. We're a good team. Now that we can't keep doing that because of lockdown, we have to do something. And yeah, I was just like, a podcast, that sounds like a great plan. So I came around to yours in the afternoon to like, well, let's brainstorm like some title ideas, some, like what could it be about, the structure, like what about the visuals, and then it just kind of, I don't really remember that because it just kind of all came out at once.
Yeah.
And then in like 20 minutes we'd like planned everything, and we were like, cool, let's book in our first guest, let's do it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I was like, what name are you thinking? And I had kind of been thinking of like, maybe we like sing for your supper or something. And then you said something that sounded like artwork.
Well, I said, well, we need to think about the artwork. And I meant like the visual. And you were like, artwork, that's great. And I was like, huh? And I was like, oh, actually, that would be pretty cool, because we're talking about, artists who have made it their work, and artwork being like, a piece of, a masterpiece or a piece of art. And
yeah,
it just kind of seemed to like encompass all art, rather, something like Sing for Your Supper, it's like maybe just on music, whereas this, it's like, we could talk to ceramicists and photographers and painters and musicians and actors, and just encompass everything. So
exactly, yeah, it just flowed. So maybe this is a good time to ask the next question that someone asked. How did you take the podcast from an idea and make it into something real? From an idea to reality. And this is kind of where we're at now. It's like, I think a lot of people, and I'm definitely guilty of this too, where I talk to people and you have a conversation and you go, oh my God, yes, we should totally do that. Yes, let's do it. And then nothing eventuates. And I've done that many, many times with many people over the course of my life. But for some reason, whenever it's with Poppy, it does eventuate. And I think there's something really key about that, because whenever I come to you with an idea, I really feel as though you're going to take it seriously, because I think I'm very good at getting ideas and thinking about ideas, but I don't feel like I have the capacity to make them happen on my own. And so having a friend that I can go, oh my gosh, what about this? And for that friend to take it really seriously and go, okay, what do we need for that to happen? Is very special. And I think because you take it seriously, then there's just no other option. And we dedicate time. So like, I think the first thing we did was like, right, we're going to meet and we're going to Google how to start a podcast.
Yeah.
And we literally went through the steps of like, we need to find a name. We need to know our target audience. We need to know what the goal of our podcast is. And we did all of that work. And so immediately it felt like something tangible.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think even in our first meeting, we'd already set up like the Gmail account so we could email artists. We'd already set up the Instagram. We were just like, we're going to do this. Like you say, there's no other option. This is just what is going to happen now. And I mean, that's how our touring started together as well. Is you came up to me at a concert and were like, oh, we should go on tour together. And I'm like, okay, let's do it. I personally, I think there's a time and a place for dreaming and like having these big ideas, but also there's a time and a place for actually committing to at least one of these ideas and giving it a go. You don't, I had no idea after saying yes to you in Frankfurt that we'd be going on, a 2-year tour across Europe and playing 80 shows. I had no idea when I said yes to the podcast on the phone that we'd be here a year later and I'd be in Bath. You don't know how it's going to turn out. I didn't know if it was going to succeed. I kind of thought maybe we'd do 10 episodes, see where we're at, and call it a day. But you just gotta whole ass it. Don't half ass it. Just give it 100%. If it feels right, if it feels like it did with us, where the ideas were kind of coming out so naturally, that we're like, let's just do it. And like you say, Google is the best. Anything you want to do, you can learn how to do for free on Google.
You're very good at that, where we meet and I kind of want to do all the background work. Like, let's find out our target audience. Let's know why we're doing this, what's going on. And you're over on your laptop starting a Gmail account. It's like, oh my God, okay, that's really tangible. Right, this is happening.
Yeah.
And so we really complement each other in that way, I think, where you're like, before we went on tour, you were like, let's buy a cajon. And I was like, what are we going to do with a cajon? But then it ended up being really key to our performance. So yeah, it's really good, I think, to have a friend that takes you seriously and then you dedicate time to sitting down and making a plan. We didn't get it right from the very beginning. Like, I think that's also really important to say that the first interview we did, we couldn't actually use because the sound wasn't very good. It took us a bit of time to find our branding and be happy with our branding. We had to change that a few times after realizing that the name wasn't really visible when the icon was small on the different platforms. So it has been a learning process, and when we first started, my editing skills were pretty minimal, and I was just kind of butchering it together. But now I've learned so much, and I feel like it's much more streamlined. So it hasn't been perfect from the beginning, but I definitely feel like we've really been open to improving as we go.
And with the structure of the episodes as well. At first, we were very focused on like the past of the artist and like where they've got to, and the things they've done to get to where they are today. Whereas now we're kind of like looking at the artists more of like, okay, this is where you are. like, let's expand, let's go bigger than that, rather than just looking at the past. We're looking also at the future and the present and their reasons and their meaning, and I feel like now we're digging a lot deeper in our conversations than we were at the start. It is a skill that we've definitely learned and improved on, of how to hold long form conversations, and for them to be engaging and to actively listen and to think of questions on the spot. Like, I think that is something I've really improved on since the start, and I'm feel really good about that.
Absolutely, yeah. And kind of being able to identify within a conversation what the artist is saying that could benefit other artists, and kind of realizing like, oh my gosh, they have this strength in this area. Let's investigate that, because that's something that other artists might really enjoy. So I think our perspective has really changed on like, what do our listeners need? What skills do our listeners want to be hearing about? And we're really aiming in every episode to provide quality information for our listeners, while also enjoying and hearing an amazing story from an artist. So that
definitely,
it's been a journey.
I think as an artist, it's easy to get into the mindset of being the superstar, and I've really kind of settled into the truth that I'm not the superstar. I am simply like a guide. I'm like a kind of like a servant to my listeners, where I would want my music to help them be the superstar of whatever they're doing, kind of thing. So it sets it on the right foot. Instead of, because I think a lot of the time with artists, sometimes it's easy to get frustrated, or I'm not getting enough traction or support. But when you look at it from the space of, hey, you're here to help people aren't here to like puff you up and push you up, but you're here to actually give people something valuable. I think that mindset helps so much.
The worst thing you can do is try and become a formula that the industry likes, because they know people who can do it better than you, and they will pay to find them. Why not attract the industry by being something they think, my God, I've never heard that before, that's interesting. That song is in my head, where did it come from again? Have a bit more faith in your own productions, have more faith in your own creativity, and do what you do. And if it's the high-rise sonnets, if it's something like a complex divine comedy by Dante, that is wonderful, but it might be a couple of cheeky lyrics down at the pump, which is also good. But be yourself.
Okay, so we know that we work well together, but how has that happened? How do we work together from the day to day? How did it start?
Well, at the beginning, we jumped into working together completely blind, and we jumped in at the deepest end of the pool. We were just like, okay, let's do it. Because when we first started touring, I didn't really know you. Like, we were colleagues, we were friends, but it wasn't like a friendship, I feel. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, for sure.
We'd just like known each other around the Berlin music scene. And I just took it really seriously that we were going to go on tour. And we kind of it just kind of happened, that's like the worst advice to say. But it did just kind of happen that we worked well together. We took each other seriously. We listened to each other. We had a space where we could be honest about things. 100%. Like, communication is so key in working together on a project, especially with just one other person. And like, not taking things about the podcast personally when I'm like, oh, can you change this edit? And you say, can you change this on the visuals? Like, that's just making the thing better. It's not a personal attack on our friendship.
Yeah, I think also we're very good at knowing what our strengths and weaknesses are. So as we were starting the podcast in the beginning, you were editing the podcast because we were using your mic. And then, of course, that had to change because we needed to go remotely. And I honestly, like, I love social media, but it's definitely like graphics and branding is really not my thing. I'm not very like visually, well, I enjoy it, but it's not my passion. And so down the line, we kind of realized, like, actually, I really enjoyed the editing, and Poppy really wanted to do the social media. So actually identifying what roles each person really want to do.
Yeah.
And being able to complement each other in that way has been great, because I look at what you do with the social media and I just go, oh my God, you're amazing. Thank you so much. I really couldn't do that, or I really wouldn't enjoy doing that.
Yeah. I mean, right back at you with the editing, because if you didn't edit the podcast, we wouldn't have a podcast, you know, and that is something for me that just seems like such a tedious job. I've been recording some meditations that I've written recently, and just editing. I mean, some of them, they're only like 8 minutes long, and I'm like, I'm so bored. I'm so sick of hearing my own voice, and I'm very grateful for you for editing these episodes.
Yeah, and I really loved it. I've really enjoyed doing that and learning how to do that. And of course, it's like very basic, but it's been enough so far. And yeah, appreciating what each other does to contribute to the project is really good. Like, whenever I message Poppy, and I need to be better at this, but whenever I message Poppy and I'm like, oh my gosh, I just uploaded the latest episode, she'll be like, you superstar. And I'm like, oh, I just did my job, but
it is true.
You make me feel like I do it really well, and that really helps.
You really do. And I really just, it's such an important part of teamwork, you know, it's just cheering each other on, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, regular conversations as well. Like, even if we're not, we are in touch a lot. We update each other a lot. And I think that helps too, just knowing what each other is working on, so we know where we're at, is really important. And having little check-ins when we meet and kind of go, okay, what do we need to do? Where are we at? You know, where are we at with our numbers? Where are we getting the listeners that we want for these episodes? Just having little check-ins to kind of make sure we're not letting it run away from us, but we're staying on top of the project and feeling like we know the broad scope of what's happening at all times.
All right, the next question is, what have you learned since starting the podcast?
I think I've learned to take my ideas seriously, and that, you know, when we're given ideas, they're almost like a gift. And I think I'm starting to realize that if I'm given an idea, it's like a gift that I can choose to do something with, or I can let it go, and maybe that idea will find a home with somebody else. But I think I'm really, really glad that I listened to this idea and I did something with it, because I feel like it really needed to exist this year for us, but also for the artists that we've talked to. I know that it's meant a lot for them to have the space to share their story, and it's such a simple thing to offer, you know, like we meet online, we have a conversation, but for a lot of artists that's been really meaningful. And then for our listeners who, you know, a lot of our listeners are artists who have really struggled during COVID as well. And for them to hear from other artists that the struggles are shared has been really, really reassuring. So I feel like we could have had this idea and not done anything with it, and a whole lot of people who have been involved with the concept would have missed out on something special, especially us. So I think that's what I've learned, is that if I have an idea, it's worth it to pursue it, because you just never know what might come of it, and you never know who you might touch or who it might impact if you take that idea seriously.
What a great answer.
I hope it doesn't sound arrogant.
No,
I'm not saying that, you know, like I have amazing ideas, but
No. I fully agree, and I love that concept that like an idea is a gift. Yeah.
What have you learned?
I think mine's a bit of a not a selfish lesson, bit of a, I don't know. let me start that again. I feel like the biggest thing that I personally have learned and like I've taken away from doing this podcast is being able to have these long form conversations. I think when we were touring and we were in living room concerts, the socializing aspect of it really overwhelmed me sometimes, of having a two-way conversation, because I think so often as a performer, you know, I'm used to having a lot of a conversation about me, and that sounds really selfish, but there's just kind of how it is, you know, when I play a gig, people would come up and say, oh, you know, how long have you been doing music, or, you know, asking me questions about my journey. And I didn't really know how to have a conversation with them and to learn about them. And I think watching you communicate with people during our living room concerts really inspired me. Like, wow, you remembered everyone's names, and you remembered like what they were studying, or, you know, little bits about their lives that I just realized when we went back, you know, second or third times to these places, like I never asked that. I never spoke about them. And I realized that imbalance, and I was really unhappy with it, that a lot of my conversations have been very me focused. And I think for me, learning how to have a conversation with someone else, it sounds like such a basic skill.
No,
and I feel kind of embarrassed saying this out loud, but it really has changed me, and in such a good way, to be able to think beyond me and think about asking interesting things about someone else, just for the joy of learning about them and learning from them. So that's what I've learned. It sounds like
no, that's
dumb.
amazing, and I totally see that growth in you as well. Like, I'm so proud of you. It's amazing now when we have the conversations and I can hear you write something on your page, and then you have this really great question that's come from what we've heard, and I go, oh gee, I wouldn't have thought to ask that. That's great. And so I can really see that you've improved in that, and it's a vital skill, and I think a lot of people don't have that skill to ask people questions and to take genuine interest in other people's lives, and I think that's really, really important.
Any artist, you just need to grind, like just keep sort of evaluate why you're making music, evaluate how it makes you feel, and then come to the decision whether it's something, you know, if it's something you want to do, then just, you know, there's no right answer. But yeah, you just gotta, you know, just write.
Yeah.
Do Instagram live gigs, do whatever sort of any means to create, you know, because like you say, we're all in it together. We're all figuring it out. And just know that, you know, wherever you are, there will be a community willing to support you.
Yeah, definitely. Don't let anyone take advantage of you either. That would be my main piece of advice.
How do we find our artists? Someone's asked. How do you find the people that you talk to?
Well, we started off with our friends, like our immediate circles, like with Helena and Benta, people like that. We had, like, you know, they were our housemates.
Yeah.
You know, so we literally started off our immediate circles. And it was really good to get to know our friends in such a deeper way. And like we're saying, having an hour-long conversation with them, you just don't do in regular life. And then we kind of expanded out to friends of friends, or acquaintances who, like, we could see were doing things online, or people we hadn't spoken to in years who were doing really cool things. This has given us an opportunity to reach out and be like, hey, like, tell us more about what you're doing. Can we share it? And those acquaintances have become friends again, or become friends full stop, since having these conversations and having them on the podcast.
Yeah, it's been great to have a reason to reach out to other artists and say, like, can we have a conversation? and find out about them. And it's been wonderful because recently, because the reach of the podcast has started to grow wider beyond our circles, we're starting to get messages on social media and emails asking to be featured on the podcast. And that's really exciting because we're starting to connect with people who we've never met before and who are, in completely different social circles to us. For example, Diana from Russia. That was fantastic. We had that amazing conversation with her about feminism, about filmmaking, about society. And I learned so much from that conversation. And I would never have ever known her probably if we hadn't have had the podcast. So that's really exciting that we can start to meet people that we never would have had the chance to without the podcast. Oh, there's a little spider on my microphone right now.
Oh,
cute. Oh, he's gonna climb back up. Yeah, he's happy. How do you feel that we've talked about this a little bit already, but how do you feel that you've been impacted by hearing other artists' stories over the last year?
I think I've been impacted in knowing that I am not alone in my struggles. As you know, I let go of music and started, pursuing other things, had this identity realization that I'm more than what I do. And I've talked about it so much on the podcast. But having other artists and other people share their stories, which is similar to mine, and that has really, really impacted me on such a personal level, and knowing that I am not alone in this journey that has taken so many twists and turns that I never expected. To know that other people are on the twisting and turning journeys as well. It's really, really impacted me in a positive way.
Yeah, I definitely feel the same. I think it's so easy for artists to have social circles full of other artists and feel really misled about what their colleagues are doing. And a lot of that, it's come up a lot in our conversations, this feeling of comparing yourself to other people and feeling like everybody else is doing all these amazing things and you're kind of not doing as much, or so you think. And I think the biggest revelation that's come from these conversations is that everybody feels that way. No matter how successful, no matter how many festivals they've taken their theatre performance, no matter how many stories they've written or how many songs they've sung, this same feeling of not having done enough, or I'm not doing that much. Like we're so good at and I think our society now is so good at faking success on social media, or really exaggerating what we're doing by this pressure that we need to be providing content on social media all the time, that we start to believe that we are on our own when it comes to not doing enough. And so I think that's the biggest thing for me, is realizing that struggle is shared. And so I'm really learning not to compare myself anymore, and that we really are on our own path. And if you start to look at other people's paths and want to jump over to that path, then you're never going to get anywhere. You just have to keep trucking on your path and stay true to what your path is, and not worry about what everyone else is doing, but celebrate what they're doing.
Yeah. So what do you hope this podcast achieves?
I think our goals for this podcast have remained true from the very beginning. I really see 3 things as our main goals. I really hope that it gives artists the chance to share their story and have the opportunity to speak freely and openly about their journey. I think that's a really empowering thing, to be able to share your story with a listener. The second thing that I think we always have wanted is that people who are not artists have the opportunity to hear the day-to-day reality of perhaps their friend or family member or someone that they didn't know who is an artist, and start to have maybe a little bit more understanding of what goes into it day to day. Because I've definitely found it very hard to explain to people in my life who are not artists what I'm doing, and for them to take it seriously. So I think I really, really wanted to give people who are not artists the chance to hear a little bit more about what goes behind the process. And the third thing was that other artists would listen to the stories and feel inspired, encouraged, feel connected to other artists, to the topics and the themes that other artists were talking about. So the artist gets to share their story, other artists get to learn from listening, and then people who have nothing to do with art can hopefully learn something as well. And I would really love to see it grow, but I feel really passionate about continuing to feature people who are not really well known. That to be a successful artist doesn't mean that you're famous, and that we are sharing stories of people who have been very successful in their art form by creating a living from it. But maybe you don't know who they are. And that's interesting. That's exciting to me. But I would love for those people to have a bigger platform. As we grow, I do hope that there's more growth and more listeners who find us, so that the artists who share their stories are heard by more people.
I think learn how to collaborate with other people, because like I'm the person who's doing a collaborative art form, so I need to learn how to listen to other people. I mean, I'm still doing my vision, but sometimes listening to other people's opinion can improve your vision. Just don't be this tyrant who just like, it's my vision, screw you all. But no, just try to listen to other people's opinion. It doesn't mean you need to follow those opinions. You just can listen to those opinions. I think that's important at a like film director, at least film director's point of view. It's important to learn how to like listen to what other people think.
It sounds so cheesy, and this is going to sound like a Disney movie, which, is its own thing, but I love Disney.
Give us the cheese.
But I do feel like if you really do just trust yourself in what your capabilities are, whatever they are, even if it feels that that's not going to support you, just trust that and really put yourself into that. As I've been a person over my life, in some ways, I've burnt out. I've probably spread myself too thin and not applied myself to one thing because I'm afraid that it won't work. But if you do trust in yourself, it will happen. It might take a bit of time, but it will happen.
How are we developing the concept? So where are we moving to beyond just the podcast, probably? Or how are we developing this?
I think our community Facebook group is a very exciting place to be, and I want that to keep growing. And we've got over 100 people in there now, and it's become this place where artists can reach out saying, I need someone to record a line of a poem for a dance piece, and for this to be a place for people to connect with each other, to share job opportunities, to share events, to share what you're working on, and for it to become this community as well as the podcast.
What our goal would be is that not only do people just hear these stories, but then that they can connect with each other beyond the episode. So providing a place for the artists who were featured, but also the listeners to connect, so that there is a place to have conversation and support each other. So we have started that already on Facebook. So if you haven't joined that and you'd like to, that would be amazing. Go and join. You can meet the people that we've featured on the podcast episodes. And eventually we would like to create a bit more of a more sustainable plan with Patreon. And we'd like to create a group on Patreon who actually contribute to being involved with the community. And because of that, we can offer them more value. So I think this is something that we're moving towards, that we would really like to, the more artists that we connect with, the more resources we have to tap into that other artists can have access to as well. And so we are developing ideas of how we can do that in a Patreon community. And it would be great at some stage to actually be able to earn a living from creating this podcast so that we can do it sustainably and that we have the time and energy to do it. But we're just constantly improving, I think, like as we said with the social media earlier on, we are trying to find ways that we can do that better. So we're starting to incorporate a reel in our weekly postings, and we've started to create our video snippets with headliner. So it's got the wave form on the image, and I'd like to start being able to incorporate subtitles somehow. We still need to research how we're doing that. But yeah, just like making it more accessible for people and really building a community around the podcast that people can tap into. That would really be our goal. We've also been asked some questions that don't have anything to do with the podcast, but more about working with friends and also some memories of our touring days and getting started with music. So I'm really interested to see what you're going to say to this, Poppy. But we've been asked, what is your favorite touring memory?
I mean, it's impossible to say just one, like one favorite, because oh my god, we just had so many, and I'm just so grateful for all the adventures that we had together. And I honestly look back at photos from those days and I'm like, oh, was that real? Like, it seemed like such a dream. But I think my favorite memory that I'm going to talk about today is when we were in Switzerland, and we were staying with Kat and Paula, and we hiked up to Oceanensee, which inspired my song Fragile. I mean, that place is just so special to me. And it was just like we walked up this beautiful mountain, this like beautiful blue lake, the waterfall, blue skies. And that was just like in our morning. And then we came home and performed a set in their basement. They had this skate ramp set up, and they put together a stage to go on top of the skate ramp. So we were like in the middle of the skate ramp. And I remember, I think it was, maybe it was the second time that we were there then. I'm not sure. I closed my eyes and I started to sing Fragile. So it must have been the second time. And like the room was kind of empty, and I was just like, let's just close my eyes and sing the whole song with my eyes closed. Like really, like we're in the town, like where this song was inspired. And then I opened my eyes and the room was just full and it was quiet and everyone was just captivated by that moment. And for me, that was just such a special memory of the just Bern in general. So many good times in Bern in Switzerland. So many good friends there. So yeah, that's one of my special. I mean, like I could go on and on. We could do a whole podcast episode just reminiscing. So I'll leave it there. What about you?
Well, it's so funny that you talk about that place, because I think one of my favorite memories was the first time that we went there, because it was our second show ever. Yeah. Or not ever, but like on this long tour, our first elongated tour. Our first stop was in Jena, and that was a little bit stressful because you were waiting for your CDs and you had to take a later bus, and we lost the mic stand and everything went wrong.
Yeah, it was touring initiation.
The
that's
plug-in
for sure.
to my guitar fell out, like everything went wrong. And And then the next day we got on a train and went all the way to Switzerland, and we were so exhausted. And I don't know whether it was that exact night or whether it was the next day, but we played on this skate ramp stage that they'd built for us. And we were the first artists that had played on it, and they hoped to have more now that they'd built this stage. But they filled this room, and my friends Paula and Kat, who I've known for many, many years, who live in like a community apartment building, the whole community was there. They'd invited friends from the city as well, and we played on this stage. And it was the moment where I realized that it was gonna work, and that we'd actually done it, and that we were on tour, and people were gonna come, and people were interested in our songs, and people were singing along. And it was just in that moment I was like, oh my gosh, we're doing it. This is happening. And it was absolutely magical, really magical, just being in that skate on that skate ramp stage.
Another little quick one before we move on was when we were doing the show in Aarau, in that beautiful apartment, and it was still very early doors, and we normally ask somebody to come up and play the cajon as a just to get the audience joining in. There's normally some good drummer in like every concert audience, and we asked if somebody wanted to come up and play the cajon for one of my songs, and normally it's always a guy. I would say like 99% it was a guy that raised their hands. And this time, this old woman put her hand up, was like, I'll do it. And I was like, amazing. Yes, come up, have a go. And I played a bit of the song, bit of the intro, get the rhythm. It's like, do you think you can work with this? She was like, yeah. Takes off these huge bangles that she had. And then just I don't even know. She just hit the cajon however she damn well pleased. And it was just so funny because it was not in time. It kind of took away from one of my favorite songs, but it was just hilarious.
I just want to say, if anyone is listening who hosted us at a living room concert, we remember every single one of them. And I'm thinking about the terrace in London where Peter was kind of offering people all these snacks that he'd made, and then played the recorder in one of my songs. And like all of those concerts have really made an impression on us. And we just loved every single one of them.
I would say believe in yourself, believe in your dreams, and trust that trust that the universe will be here to help you, but trust yourself as well. I would add.
Yes, definitely.
You can do it. You can do it.
Advice? I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just doing things and hoping something happens. I don't know. It's just like, I don't want to say believe in yourself. I think there's like, if you're going to keep going with it, there's an assumption and a belief that it will happen, and just have that assertion, because if you do anything long enough, you'll get somewhere, and it is true. It may well be the place that you thought you were going to end up, but like, just keep going, because it does get better. I know I've made it sound like horrible a lot of the time, but actually it's not. I wouldn't still be doing this if this was rubbish. Obviously not. It's great and it's amazing. If you feel like you could do something else, but if not, that's also fine. Like, just know what it is and weigh that up. I'm sure people have given much better advice than that, but that's what I've got.
This is a great question. And we're going to go back a little bit now. How did you get started with songwriting? Someone has asked us.
I mean, for me, it was the day that I found out that Taylor Swift writes her own songs. I was like, hello? People write songs and then sing them? I was like, this is what I need to do with my life. So I was just always playing the piano. And then I started to write poems, just literally about like boys I had crushes on when I was like 12. If I read back in those books, poetry books, it's hilarious. But yeah, I think for me it was just this love of music, and being able to sit at the piano and hear a tune and then be able to play it like immediately that's when I was like, okay, this comes really easily to me. And I love expressing my feelings through words, as we learnt from my poetry. I say poetry in very big quotation marks, and I just started writing little songs, and I mean, it took a little while for them to be good, or good enough that I would think I want to perform this in front of people. But yeah, it's weird for me now to think about that, because I don't really do it anymore. It's weird. But I think also just listening to a lot of other music as well. I listen to a lot of Taylor Swift and Colby Calais and all sorts of like female singer-songwriters that I was inspired by. Took little tweaks. So what I loved about Taylor Swift is, like, especially in like Fearless time, she would change like one line in the last chorus that would change like the meaning of the song, and I always love to do that in my songs as a little technique. But yeah, what about you, Brie? How did you get started with songwriting?
I was never really big into poetry and songwriting as a teenager. It kind of happened after I took my first vocal lessons in uni when I was studying theatre, and I'd had my first performance, and I could only really play covers, and then that first performance that I did was completely revolutionary, and I realized that I really wanted to do music, but I'd never really written any songs. And so then I kind of paired up with my brother James, who is a great piano player, and we started getting some gigs in our area. And he had written a few songs, and we did a lot of covers. And then I realized, like, I think I need to start being able to contribute something here. And I was picking up the guitar a little bit more, and I found this little dung 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 dung. I made this little like guitar part, and I went to James and I was like, I've got this little guitar part. What do you think it means? What do you think it's telling us? And we had this massive afternoon sitting on the bed, being like, oh my gosh, I feel like it's someone just wants to fly away from their normal life on this magic carpet. And, there's a sparrow and diamonds, and we're talking to someone. So, hey, mister. And so we just like collaborated and wrote this song together. And it was kind of the first song that I'd really written. And it was really collaborative. And we ended up recording it with my sister as well. And it's called Hey Mister by our trio back then called Wyla.
Hey Mister, take your magic carpet for a ride, far from the troubles of your mind. High above the mountain peaks you'll climb, like a whisper in the wind. Your dreams will come around again. Moments that you thought were lost will be diamonds in your heart.
yeah, I wrote that song and I felt like it was a really good song and I really liked it. And then it just became something I started doing more and more. And friends at uni, if they needed a song for a theatre play, would be like, can you write something about this? And I was like, yeah, I guess I can. And so it just started to flow and I wrote more and more. And well, I'd only really written 5 songs and then I was like, well, I guess I need to make an EP now. And that was kind of when I came to Europe. So I didn't have many songs when I came to Europe and had my first CD. They were all on the CD. So lucky I had 4. But yeah, it was quite a slow process, a very late process, I would say, for me. But it's become quite therapeutic for me now. And it's not something I do all the time at the moment. But I am doing it a lot with my partner, Dom. So like organizing time to write songs together with him has helped me keep practicing the practice. But yeah, I think I've struggled to know what to say or feel creatively inspired during COVID, so I haven't been writing many songs lately.
Yeah, I think, I mean, our songs are very like story based, you know, storytelling songs.
Definitely.
And when nothing has happened for a year, it's like you just don't feel inspired to be writing stories and being, you know, excited to share. And I think that's just totally fair and something to remember, that like if you are feeling writer's block, like it's okay. It's not the end of the world. It will pass.
Yeah, definitely.
And that this has been such a bizarre time to be creative in like a storytelling kind of way for so many people. So yeah, if you are struggling, it's okay.
So Poppy, how do we support each other emotionally when working together, and how do we separate friendship and work?
We took a leaf out of Opapa's book, actually. We spoke with them a few weeks ago now, and they told us that within their band, they have separate WhatsApp groups, one for positive vibes, you know, complimenting each other, you know, you did a great jump fill here and things like that, and one for business, and then one for jokes and for like your shit and kind of thing. And we were like, let's take a leaf out of their book and just create 2 WhatsApp groups just with us 2, but one titled Artwork for podcast work, and anything to do with the podcast goes in there. And then we have another one called Fart Fun Friendship, for just our friendship times and checking in with each other, making sure we're okay. And it's really good to have that separation between friendship and work, because like I said before, you know, at first I took things really personally when you were like, can we just change this? I was like, but it's perfect.
And I do struggle with that too sometimes as well. It is hard not to take it personally.
But I feel like now that it's separate and it's in the artwork group, I'm like, oh yeah, sure thing. Like, that's fine. That's for the work thing. I know you don't hate me as a person because you want me to move one icon, you know, a couple centimeters to the left. Like, it's fine. So I think that's definitely really helped us in the last couple of months to have that separation. In our lines of communication, you know. But then also when we are going to record a podcast with a guest, we jump on, you know, 20 minutes before, and we have 10 minutes or so to just catch up with each other. How are you? Where are you at? You know, what's going on in your life? Are you okay? Always we do that before we jump into, you know, work talk and what should we talk about in this episode and blah, blah, blah. So I think that's also really important to have check-ins with each other when you are working on something that you know, you could, the friendship side of it could kind of fall to the side when we're both so passionate about this project. And it is really important to remember, like, we're humans too. And yeah, it's good to have that time to catch up.
Definitely.
Okay. Our final 2 questions are on the same page. So, what is the biggest challenge of being an artist for you?
I think the constant questioning of whether I'm what I'm doing and whether I'm doing it right, whether I'm just the dialogue that comes with it in my head. And I think probably people of all spheres and all disciplines in their lives struggle with this anyway. But I think it is particularly loud for artists because what we do is so connected to who we are and what our stories are and how we feel, that it's really difficult to separate what we are making with who we are.
Mm-hmm.
And so if it's rejected from something, or if people don't like it, or if you know you've made a mistake, or you know you could have done better in that performance, it's very difficult to separate that dialogue from self-talk, like self-loathing talk. And I think and even just questioning, like, what am I doing with my life, and not knowing how it's all going to pan out. It can be very, very hard on your mental health, on your psyche. And I think for me, that's probably the hardest thing, is the dialogue that's going on in my mind that's so connected with who I am because of what I do.
I relate to that a lot. I really do. And I've spoken about it, but I've gone through my own like journey with that last year of like untangling that web of, you know, what I do and who I am and all of that. And yeah, I feel it in a much better place about that a year later. And I think, I mean, it's something I still deal with 100%, but it's now that I'm aware that those are different things and that it can be separate and that it should be separate. It's a lot easier now that I'm like fully aware of that, and I've done so much journaling and talking about it that it gets better.
What's the biggest challenge of being an artist for you?
I think like the loneliness of the day to day, especially this year, because I mean, yes, we work together on this and I'm part of other online communities and what have you, but just like being on my own for like most of the time, I've found really challenging, just like mentally and creatively as well. Not being able to have not having many new ideas, as I feel like, you know, when I was busy with touring and things, I'd write songs like very often because I was constantly having new ideas and meeting new people and having fresh inspiration. But I feel just being on my own a lot. Like there's two parts. I love living on my own and I love hanging out with me 100%, but there is a time where I'm like, okay, it would be nice to see someone else now in the flesh, and it would be nice to just go and sit on Bree's couch and have a tea and talk about the podcast in person and not have to schedule a Zoom meeting. And it, you know, that I found very challenging this year. Yeah. But we have each other, and like I say, I do have these online communities where I can feel, you know, part of something 100%. On the flip side, what is the best thing about being an artist?
You're doing what you love, and you're doing exactly what you would do if you could choose anything. And you're going to get to the end of your life and you're not going to have regrets because you tried. And like our conversation with Phoebe Kim the other day, she was like, there's no more what ifs because you're doing it and you're giving it a go. And then if it doesn't work out, you can do something else. But we will never have to ask the question, what if? Because we tried and we're giving it a go and we're believing in ourselves. And so I think the best thing about being an artist is that you get to do what you love to do, even though it can be hard. You're doing it.
I think for me, the best thing about being an artist is when you get into a creative flow, you know, when you're in the zone, you're doing your thing, you're, you know, whether it's painting or writing a song or, you know, whatever it is, your art form, and you're in the flow of just creating and the ideas are flowing, and you don't know what time is. You know, you don't look at the time, you don't have to get up to pee, you forget to drink, you know, you forget to eat. I mean, obviously this isn't a sustainable thing, but for those, you know, few hours, and whenever they come, you never know when you're going to get into that state. But for me, that state of just creating is just my favorite state of being. But also I do love to eat and be hydrated, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
when you get into the flow, it's just, yeah, like you feel like you're doing what you're meant to be doing. You know, there's no other questions of like, should I be doing this right now? It's like, why would I do anything else right now?
Wow. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for asking us those questions. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast and for making our dream and our idea a reality. We love this. We love doing it, and we can't wait to see what's going to happen in the next 12 months with this podcast.
My God, I know. Who knows? Just big thank you to everyone who's supported and messaged us and listened and been a part of this journey, and all the artists that have shared their stories and inspired us and inspired each other. And big thank you to you as well, Brea, for having this idea and then trusting me to help bring it into the world. I honestly am so grateful for that phone call a year ago.
I'm so thankful to have a friend who takes my ideas seriously. Thank you.
Yeah, it's just been so wonderful, especially in Corona times, to like have a reason to get out of bed on those hard days, to be like, oh, we get to talk to this amazing artist today, and actually like just have a reason to to do things. It's really helped me, this podcast project, through this COVID time, and I can't wait to carry on and talk to so many other amazing artists and learn and grow and share.
Thank you so much, everyone. Happy birthday, artwork.
Happy birthday.
Bye.
Bye.